And the third email today comes to us from Samir Amari, who writes, Brad Bird did an interview where he said he thought Edge of Tomorrow would have done better at the box office if it had been a sequel or a franchise film, and that audiences don't go out to support original films. He was saying that's why a lot of studios are afraid to do a lot of original or non-franchise movies. Do you agree or disagree with him? Yeah, so Brad Bird was he was on Twitter, and he was replying to a lot of people on Twitter and saying a bunch of things. And one of the discussions he got into was specifically around the idea about, why are studios afraid to make, or a lot of original films? And he kind of answered that on question because audiences don't support it. Like, audiences don't go out and support them. He gave one example in talking about Edge of Tomorrow when he said this specifically. Edge of Tomorrow is a great movie, but the audience, who asks for originality in films, failed to show up for it. If it had been released as Live, Die, Repeat, it might have been a hit. It should have been. Sadly, it was called Edge of Tomorrow, a terrible and bland title for a really entertaining film. And I completely agree with him on that. I've always thought the title for Edge of Tomorrow was stupid. I thought they should have kept All You Need Is Kill. I thought that's the title they should have gone with. But anyway, he's just making the point and using that as one specific example that, we have audiences constantly saying, we want original films. But as what Brad Bird is pointing out, when Hollywood gives us original films and good original films, the audiences don't go out to support them. You put out a crappy Transformers The Last Night movie, it makes $600 million. You put out some other original film that gets like a 90% on Rotten Tomatoes and nobody goes to see it. Like, let's put this in perspective here for a second. Ocean's 8, I believe, which I didn't think was a bad movie. Ocean's 8 wasn't a bad movie, but it's a recognizable IP. It's part of a franchise, blah, blah. And it wasn't a bad little film, but it made like $140 million domestically. Just domestic. We're talking about the North American box office. Made about $140 million there, which is huge. 130, 140, somewhere in that neighborhood, right? But then Hollywood puts out all these great, we're just talking about this year, just 2018. Hollywood puts out a whole ton of great original films that people don't go to see. Black Klansman's in theaters right now. It's only made $32 million. Talking domestically. It's only made $32 million. Hereditary, it's got an 89% Rotten Tomatoes score. Only made $44 million. Ocean's 8 literally made more than triple of what Hereditary made. A great original horror movie, like it's fantastic. Made only 1/3 of what Ocean's 8 did, right? Upgrade, which I really like, 86% on Rotten Tomatoes, made $12 million. The Death of Stalin, which granted didn't have a super wide release, but it did play in over 500 theaters, which means it was playing somewhere near you. 96% Rotten Tomatoes rating, $8 million at the box office. Sorry to Bother You, which is a movie I don't like at all, but the fact of the matter is the critics love it, and a lot of you guys loved it. 94% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, $16 million at the box office. Tully, the Jason Reitman film, with Charlize Theron, like with a great cast, big name director, 87% on Rotten Tomatoes, solid, great movie, makes $9 million at the North American box office. One of the most frustrating things, this Brad Pitt scenario kind of highlights one of the most frustrating things for me in as a film fan, is when I still will hear people say, Hollywood doesn't do anything original anymore. Yes, they do. There is more original film made today than in any other time in Hollywood history. It is also true that there are more sequels and franchises and remakes made than any other time in history. That is also true. But it does not negate the fact that there are more movies being made today than ever before, and that means there's more original film being made today than ever before. The only difference is y'all don't go out to support it. So don't cry when a studio goes, well, we could make an Ocean's 8, right? It's a little tried, it's a little true, blah, blah. Or we got this dynamite idea for this movie based on, say, Black Klansman. We got this dynamite idea. Spike Lee's going to direct. It's going to be awesome, blah, blah. But, well, one will make us $130, $140 million. One will make us 30. Which one are you going to do if you're a studio, right? When we as the audience constantly tell the studios, We want franchise movies. We want sequels. We want franchises. We want reboots. When what we do is constantly tell the studios that, and we tell them that by the movie tickets we buy, we're not going out and seeing the great original films. We're going out to see Ocean's 8. We're going out to see Transformers The Last Night. We're going out to see Avengers Infinity War. We're going out to see Solo. We're going out to see Incredibles 2. I mean, this dude who's complaining about sequels in Hollywood, he just had one of the most successful sequels, and he doesn't like the idea of sequels, which probably has one of the big reasons why we had to wait so long to get ourselves an Incredibles 2 to begin with, because he just doesn't like the idea of sequels. But we as an audience, as much as we whine and complain, I'm guilty too, as much as we whine and complain that not enough original film, the fact of the matter is they put out tons of original film, the audience doesn't go support it. Sorry, the numbers prove it over and over and over and over again. So, I don't know. I mean, then even you get some movies like Valerian, City of a Thousand Planets, right? Big spectacle, sci-fi, huge visual effects, budget, blah, 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 blah. Totally flopped. People didn't go out to support it because it wasn't in the MCU. Because it wasn't part of the DCU, because it wasn't part of the Star Trek universe or the Star Wars universe or whatever. It was an original film, and people didn't go support it. Now, granted, that movie wasn't great, but it was a lot better than other movies that made a lot more money than it. So, yeah, it is one of those frustrating things, and I think Brad Bird is dead on the money. I mean, obviously the studios will be a little hesitant to make a lot of big-budget original films because they're seeing, hey, the audience don't go out to support the smaller ones. If we make the bigger ones, we're going to just take financial baths and lose tons of money, and I'm going to lose my job. So I totally see where Brad Bird's coming from. I really do. All right, let's move on now to the next topic.